In the dust-blown silence of the New Mexico plains, a woman named Clara Bennett arrived at the edge of nowhere with nothing but a torn letter, a suitcase full of worn dresses, and eyes that carried stories no one dared to ask about. The stagecoach left her behind in front of a weathered ranch, the wind tugging at her bonnet, and her heart hammering like a trapped bird. She'd come because of a promise, a letter that said a cowboy named Luke Dalton would marry her, keep her safe, and expect nothing in return. Safety, not love, that was the deal. Luke appeared through the heat shimmer, tall, sunburned, and quiet, the kind of man who looked like he'd wrestled storms and won. His eyes were sharp but kind, his hat shadowing the part of him he didn't show the world. Clara expected coldness, perhaps indifference, but instead he tipped his hat, offered his hand, and said, "Ma'am, let's get you home before the wind takes your hat and your courage." That was the first time she smiled in months. Life on the ranch wasn't easy. The land was as wild as the people who tried to tame it. Wolves howled at night, storms tore through fences, and outlaws rode too close for comfort. But Luke was a man who didn't break easily. He taught Clara how to ride, how to shoot, and how to stand tall even when fear whispered. He never pried about her past, though she sometimes caught him watching her with eyes that wanted to understand. He built her a little garden by the porch, repaired her old suitcase, and made sure she ate before he did. It wasn't romance, it was care, steady and quiet, like the heartbeat of the earth beneath their boots. Yet in the stillness of those long evenings, something started to change. The air between them grew heavier, softer. When his hand brushed hers by accident while handing her a cup of coffee, her chest fluttered like a trapped bird again, but this time not from fear. Then came the night that changed everything. A group of men rode in looking for her. They were from her past, the reason she'd fled across states to find a husband she'd never met. Luke stood on that porch, rifle in hand, calm as the stars above. "You'll not take her," he said, voice low and certain. The men sneered, laughed, threatened, but Luke didn't flinch. When the first shot rang out, it was him who stood between Clara and death. The gunfire echoed through the valley, and when the dust settled, the outlaws were gone, retreating into the dark. Luke's shoulder was bleeding, but he only smiled, tipping his hat. "Told you I'd keep you safe." Mrs. Dalton, that was the first time she cried, not from fear, but from something deeper, something she couldn't name. In the days that followed, as she tended to his wound, she realized she'd fallen for him long before that night. Not in a grand, sweeping way, but in small moments. The way he spoke to the horses like friends, the way he always left the last piece of bread for her, the way he made silence feel safe. When he finally woke from fever, she held his hand and whispered, "You married me to protect me, Luke, but I think you saved more than my life." He looked at her then, really looked, his voice rough as gravel but soft as a prayer. "Darling, I didn't just marry you to keep you safe. I reckon I needed someone to remind me what worth fighting for feels like." The ranch healed along with them. The fields turned green again, the fences stood taller, and the sunsets looked brighter than before. They worked side by side, she with her garden, he with his cattle, and laughter began to echo where silence once ruled. When the preacher came months later to bless the land, Luke asked Clara if she'd marry him again, not out of protection, but love. She smiled through tears, took his hand, and said, "I'd marry you every day if it meant I'd never have to live without you." Again, the townsfolk who came to watch whispered that they'd never seen two people look at each other like that, not as if they'd fallen in love, but as if they'd built it, plank by plank, like the ranch they called home. As the story spread through the valley, folks began to believe in something again, that maybe love wasn't always found in fancy places or grand gestures. Sometimes it was born in the dust, in the quiet spaces between two broken souls who decided to heal together. And every time the wind carried laughter from that ranch down to the town, it reminded people that fear might be powerful, but love, when it's real, lasts longer. And if you felt that warmth in your heart, the kind that makes you believe in love again, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the soul. and remind you that even in the wildest storms, love finds its way home. Because out here in the wild west of hearts, every story deserves to be told, and yours might just be the next. When weeks passed after the attack, and the ranch found peace again, the nights grew softer, the air rich with the scent of blooming sage. Luke's shoulder healed slowly, but Clara noticed the way he'd wince when lifting the feed sacks, pretending not to. One evening, she joined him under the stars with 2 cups of coffee and a blanket. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was full of unspoken things. Luke finally broke it, saying, "You don't have to stay here forever. Clara, you're safe now." She looked at him, her heart tightening. "I don't want to leave," she whispered. "This is the first place that's ever felt like home." Luke turned toward her, eyes reflecting the campfire glow. "Then I reckon I'll keep building it with you," he said softly. She smiled, tears glinting, and for the first time she leaned into him. The stars seemed to lean closer too, listening to 2 hearts learning how to beat together. That night, as the wind whispered through the fields, Clara realized that love wasn't about grand promises. It was about quiet moments, steady hearts, and the courage to stay